Hey, here we are for the March 2024 forecast. So, if you're watching live, that's great. If you're watching afterwards, that's fine too. I am going to start out, as always, jumping right into the March forecast, and then we'll do some talking. If you have any questions or anything like that, we can answer that later on. But for the people that are watching afterwards, let's get to the forecast right away. And after all, that's what we're here for. Just talk about March. We really have to do a bit of a recap. We have to talk about I would go back to September, October. September, October, very busy time. A lot of activity in the sky. We had the eclipses, we had planetary stations and things like that. Very, very typical of eclipse season. Lots of stuff landed on our plates. Lots of things going on up in the sky and down here as well. And then in, I would say, November, December, we really hit a kind of like a drag time. And not like nothing happens, but there wasn't a lot of energy rolling around. Right as we began 2024, actually, it really right on the mark there as we began 2024. We had Jupiter went direct, ending his 4-month retrograde on December 30th, and then Mercury went direct on January 1st. I really think that maybe there's something to the fact that we began the year with Mercury retrograde. I have a little bit of a sense that maybe that was telling. I don't think Mercury has ever really gone direct. Well, you know what I mean. We seem to have a lot of those mercurial kinds of issues continuing. But then things, from like mid-January on, we had a little bit of a chance for things to get moving. We had a little bit of a chance for things to start going. And we're still in that spot, but I don't feel that it is quite the energy level that we would like to have. Now, a couple of reasons for that. For one thing, since January 23rd, when Venus left Sagittarius, there are no planets in fire signs. And that will be the case all the way through March 9th, when Mercury goes into Aries. So we have this long period of time, more than a month, with no planets in fire signs. Okay, the moon is in fire signs about 6 days a month, about 2 days at a time, 60 hours at a time, doing what she can do. But that's not the same thing as having a planet reliably in a fire sign. So we're at this kind of period, there's not a lot of fire. So you have to kind of bring your own enthusiasm. The door will open if you push, but you got to push, right? And there's not a lot of that inspiration, spiritedness that gets things moving. That is part of the picture for late January, all of February, and the beginning of March. A good idea, by the way, when there's no fire in the sky, is to take it very literally and bring some of your own. Light candles and incense and things like that. If you happen to be in a place where there is sun, go bask in the sunshine for a while. That's a nice thing to do. You can be very literal with the elements when there's not when you don't have enough water in your chart. Make sure that you stay sensibly hydrated, things like that. So if we're lacking fire in the sky, we make a little fire down here on Earth and see what happens. That's a strategy there. We also, since Pluto left Capricorn, we don't have that much in the way of planets at the end of signs at the moment. As we begin March, we only have Neptune out at 26 degrees Pisces, and that means we have long moon void times. I have a video someplace on the channel about moon void, and you can go check that out if you're interested or if you're not familiar. But we do have more long moon void times combined with this lack of fire in the sky. And thus, we have maybe a little bit lower energy coming into March. And yet March is going to heat up by the time, what is it? March comes in like a lamb and goes out like a lion, right? And it's the other way around. March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. This year, it's going to be the other way around. March comes in a little gentler than it leaves. Okay, We have some stuff going on this month, mostly towards the later part of the month. Use the beginning part of the month as a time of preparation. Right? So think about the things in your life that you got to pay some attention to. Like, what are some of the soft spots that, that might be giving way, and what would you do about that? What are some of the things that you want to get going if you want to get something going? Approach it that way. Okay. Do the preparation work early in the month. Rest yourself. That's another good thing to do at the beginning of this month. Rest yourself. Let yourself heal. Get yourself into a good spot. You're going to need it as we get into later March and April and eclipse season and sparkling aspects and all that. So this is a good time for you to start out the month giving yourself enough rest, giving yourself enough preparation. Okay. The celestial activity will certainly kick up as we get to the end of the month. As we get to the end of the month, things are going to kick up. Now, what does that mean when we have a lot of celestial energy, when there's a lot of aspects going on, when we have all eclipses and all this type of thing? I often say that when there's a lot of celestial energy, we have new things come on our plate. We have new things to deal with. And I'll stick by that explanation. I think that we do get new things to deal with when we have a lot of celestial energy. But even for things that are already on the table for us, I think that what the high celestial energy does is it allows a greater potential for change. If you're at a tipping point, in a relationship, in career, high celestial energy is liable to tip you one way or the other. If you're going along and things are moving the higher celestial energy indicates you can make a turn here or there, or you can keep going straight. You can speed up a little bit. So that's kind of the way we look at these periods of time when there's a lot of celestial energy. They're neither good nor bad in and of themselves, and not at all. It's just that there's a lot of celestial energy, and that means that there's a lot of potential for change. And, if you're sitting still, that change comes at you. If you're moving, then you can move with it. If you're aware of it, you can at least take it into account. You may not want all that much change, but at least you can sort of take it into account. So there's a high potential for change. We're really feeling that as we get on towards the end of March. All right. Now, shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about relationships, because relationship stuff is likely to be quite prominent in the month of March and coming into the very beginning of April. For one thing, partnership asteroid Juno is very big this month. She is retrograde in Virgo, and that means that all the planets that are in Pisces are going to oppose Juno. Now, Juno is about partnership commitment, right? This isn't what you want. This is what you got. This is, what is my commitment to the partnership? So this really affects existing relationships mostly. But Juno, who's sort of reconsidering things, retrograde in Virgo, will be opposed by Mercury, the Sun, Saturn, and Venus in March. And then on April 1st, Mars will oppose Juno. So this is a kind of, what's going on with relationship type of thing, right? Things we're considering what this. Oh, she shall also take a trine from Jupiter. I should mention, like a nice helpful trine from her husband, Jupiter. So this is a time when we're reconsidering, seeing where things are going when it comes to relationship. Juno, again, existing partnerships, where are we with them? Mercury starts right off on the 1st. Mercury is opposed to Juno, and this is probably, if there's anything to say, don't forget, if there's nothing to say, then this stuff all just flies right past you. If there's something to say, probably start hearing about it just as the month begins. Even as February ends and March begins, you start hearing about this. We got something to talk about. Tying into this, on the 3rd of March, we have Venus squared to Uranus. Now, this is a tense aspect, but they're in each other's signs, right? So we have what we call mutual reception. Uranus is in Venus's sign of Taurus. Venus is in Uranus's sign of Aquarius. Essentially, in the context of existing relationships, this is saying, do we want to make change? This is working together with this Juno energy. Do we want to make change? If you're not in a relationship, well, then it probably doesn't affect you all that much. It does sort of open you up to new possibilities, and I would say those possibilities very likely come from group activities. Maybe you'll find something with a you can maybe find somebody for a personal relationship within a group activity, or you might really just enjoy group activities. It really suggests kind of mixing things up, breaking out of the box, enjoying yourself, but doing it maybe in a little bit different way. Break out of your routines. That's kind of the Venus Uranus thing. But within the context of existing relationships, again, this is saying, okay, how are we starting the month? We're starting the month with a presentation of something's going on here. What is it? On the 21st, I should say actually on the 19th, before we get to the 21st, the 19th, Venus will be opposite to Juno. And then the principal Venus of what we want, and by this point in time, Venus will be in Pisces. What we want and what we've got, are these things matching up? Venus, Juno aspects, these are two relationship planets. And though the question that comes with these two is always, are we getting what we want? What we've got, we know what we got, we know what we want. Are these things matching up at all? Then on the 21st, Venus meets with Saturn. And that is kind of a bit the reckoning time for all of this sort of processing that's been going on with Juno and so on. Venus to Saturn is kind of asking, okay, what's it going to be? What's the end result of all this? It's in Pisces, so we can be flexible about it. I would also look to the time around the 21st as being maybe kind of interesting in terms of financial markets, because Venus often has a lot to do with finances. Venus rules values and valuables and so on. Right around the 21st, let's say from the 19th to the 23rd or so, I'd be really careful about having anything assessed or appraised or trying to find the value of something. Not a wonderful time to ask for a raise or anything like that, right? It's not a good time it's not really a great time for business transactions, because the values would likely to be depressed. Saturn will depress the value of things. So that's just to keep that in mind. In other news in the month of March, from the 7th to the 10th, we have this. I know I said the early part of the month is a good time to rest, and we do have something from about the 7th to the 10th. Mercury meets with Neptune. You have to catch this on the weekly forecast. I can't go into it too much right now, but when Mercury, the planet of communication and information, meets with Neptune, we very frequently, it's like Mercury retrograde raised to a power, and especially so in the dual sign of Pisces. So here we're talking about having lots of possibilities, lots of things to say, and is there, what is the substantive reality behind these things? We just don't know. It is a terrific time. Mercury to Neptune, great time for meditation, great time for creativity, for playing with things, for, give it a shot, do some creative writing. It's a really wonderful time for everything except practical stuff where, dotted line, check your inventory kind of thing. This is not the time for that. This is not the time for that sort of thing. It should be fun. It should be good. It should be creative, but it's just not good for practical stuff. Okay. At the same time, though, Mars is going to be square to Uranus. Mars will be in Aquarius and square to Uranus. Now, Mars is in Uranus's home sign, and that's good. It's not quite as good as the Venus Uranus thing, though. Mars-Uranus aspects are very impulsive. Mars is action. Uranus has this impatient, impulsive kind of energy. And so there's this real drive to act. And so we have the misinformation of Mercury conjunct Neptune, and we have the let's get active and do something of Mars square Uranus. And this is a little bit of an uncomfortable thing. You know, some folks are gonna, you know, go flying off the handle, you know, I mean, based upon completely ridiculous stuff. You know, it's just, they'll just be wrong. They'll just be wrong. Just, you know, they get misinformation, you get misinformed, and, you know, you're blowing things out of proportion. It is Pisces after all. And then there's Mars and Uranus says, well, let's go act on this. So from the 7th to the 10th, you're going to want to sort of watch out for people who are a little bit overly wound up and, you know, perhaps ready to go off on a crusade that is really just a cruise to nowhere. You don't want to go with them. We have the new moon in Pisces on the 10th. Right? This is, so all this activity that under this Neptune, Mercury, Mars, Uranus thing is actually coming into the new moon, which hopefully will damp things down a little bit. Often the new moon energy, the new moon lack of energy plus fiery aspects indicates a time when people are kind of a little bit extra irritable. But you know, hopefully it'll just sort of dampen things down and you don't have to go too far with stuff. Let's hope for that. The new moon on the 10th in Pisces is also the beginning of eclipse season, because after that new moon, we are ramping up to the lunar eclipse on the 25th. Right. So this is the beginning of eclipse season. And over the course of the next 2 weeks, we get this increase in energy. There's a really good video on my channel about eclipses and understanding the whole eclipse season thing. And if you're not familiar with how this works, then I would say to go watch it. But basically, the energy starts to build from the new moon on the 10th onward. And you start to really feel it after, you know, a few days, certainly by the first quarter moon, a week later, you're really going to be feeling it. And speaking of that first quarter moon on the 17th, it's at the same time as the sun is conjunct to Neptune. That means the moon is going to be in Gemini, because it's the first quarter moon, if you're following along with that. The moon is going to be in Gemini, the sun is in Pisces, and it is conjunct Neptune. Again, this is not a particularly realistic aspect, right? We're not dealing with a lot of realism here when the sun conjuncts Neptune. It is once again a tremendous time. Even Mercury Neptune is a great time for some creative stuff, good time for meditation. Well, so too with the sun conjunct Neptune, but even more so is it a great time for creativity, because it's the sun, it's the solar principle. It's a great time for meditation, any kind of spiritual practice. Very, very strong, right? So this is a tremendous opportunity, but again, it is not great for practical stuff. It is not great for practical stuff. Sun conjunct Neptune, we often make heroes and villains out of ordinary people, right? You know, you're not dealing with Game of Thrones for real. You're just dealing with the people that are in your life, and yeah, they annoy you or whatever, but you don't need to make it into such a thing. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind right around the 17th. It is the active first quarter moon. We're very, very likely to be feeling for doing something. Do something, enjoy yourself, have a great time with it. But, you know, when it comes to practical decision making, sun conjunct Neptune is just not the time to be doing it. So we do have a gaggle of planets in Pisces by the month's end. We have Venus coming in on the 11th, even as Mercury leaves 2 days earlier for Aries. Mars gets into Pisces on the 22nd, which is going to bring more of that Piscean energy. Mars in Pisces, and he'll be in Pisces for about 6 weeks. Mars in Pisces is either it's like 80 miles an hour or stalled, you know, and very typically goes to both extremes. So the collective vibe, remember, we're only talking about the collective. We're talking about the general vibe that's out there. Although, of course, you live in the collective, and you're part of it. So it's not like it's, you know, this isn't your personal forecast. But then again, I mean, it's not like it doesn't affect you. Mars in Pisces, folks either get really, really riled up, and it's, you know, there's no stopping them, or everything just kind of fizzles out. This is the thing. This is not if you have Mars in Pisces in your chart. This is what's going on, you know, as the collective. It is not the easiest of energies. You could direct the energy, I suppose, towards spiritual pursuits and things like that. Give it a shot, see what happens. The sun, meanwhile, has left the Piscean party and goes into Aries at the equinox. And that happens on March 19th at 10:05 p.m. Eastern time, which would be 7:05 p.m. in the Pacific time. And that is assuming that we have not jumped back to daylight time, which I don't know when we're going to make that change. So I'm 10:05 Eastern Standard Time. You know, I'm going to look that up. When usually Apple tells me things like that. They usually tell me when daylight savings time begins. Now, well, they haven't told me if it's then anyway. Anyways, keep in mind, it's 10:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if we've gone into daylight time, that's it. I'm sure the UK folks will be still on Standard Time. So it would be 3 a.m. on the 20th Greenwich. The equinox, of course, the beginning of the sun's passage through Aries. It is the time when the days and the nights are equal to each other, right? And there's a lot of change right around the equinox. Assuming that you're in the northern hemisphere, you'll notice the days are getting longer rapidly around the equinox. If you're in the southern hemisphere, you'll notice it's getting darker a lot quicker. The peaks are at the solstice, the Capricorn and the Cancer solstice, but the changes are rather slow around the solstice. The changes are very quick at the equinox. We get longer days much faster. So that is a significant moment. It's the beginning of springtime if you're in the northern hemisphere. And it's the beginning of autumn if you're in the southern hemisphere. Oh, well. Then we have the eclipse. The eclipse happens on the 25th. It is a lunar eclipse. It's an annular lunar eclipse. It's not a total lunar eclipse. It's an annular lunar eclipse. When we get to the week of, I'll go into more detail and show you pictures and things like that. But it is a lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses are powerful full moons. Things come to light right then and there. Right? You don't have to wait. This is not a wait and see kind of thing. Right then and there, you get everything. Boom. It's the, you know, I mean, you know, a day or two before, a day or two after, but it happens right away. That's the effect of a lunar eclipse. It's powerful. If full moon lunacy is a thing, and it is, then it gets accentuated at a lunar eclipse. Okay, it is exact at about 5. It is exact at 5 degrees Libra. You can't say exact at about. It is exact at 5 degrees of Libra. And if you have planets at 5 Aries, 5 Libra, if you have perhaps planets at 5 Cancer and Capricorn, then you're going to feel the eclipse. But especially if you're at 5 Libra and 5 of Aries, those are the degrees that are really affected. And remember, eclipses, you have to really be there. If you're at 9 degrees, that's like lightning striking 4 houses down. Not inconsequential, but it's not hitting your place. If you got to be right there. Again, you don't have to wait for it, though. You don't have to wait for it. Whatever's going to happen, whatever's going to come with this eclipse, you're going to know it right away, because that's the way full moon lunar eclipses work. Solar eclipses, well, we'll talk about that next month. Just to mention, because the activity is going to be high all month long, and particularly from, I would say, right around mid-month onwards. As we hit April, we have, before we get to April, on the 29th of March, Pallas Athene stations to retrograde. Okay, Pallas Athene, the truth teller asteroid, stations to retrograde. And then 3 days later, on April 1st, Mercury stations to retrograde. So we get that. So as we get to the end of March, we're feeling that Mercury retrograde type of thing. Now, Mercury retrograde, about, or you can go watch the video on my channel and learn about. But Mercury retrograde has a lot to do with communication, transportation, commerce, contracts, and things like that, and all of the usual problems that come up with this cosmic gremlin. But Mercury retrograde has a lot to do, and remember, right around the stations is when we tend to get the most stuff. So we have to talk about it in March, because March 30th and 31st are leading up to that April 1st station of Mercury. Mercury retrograde is formal. It's a formal kind of thing. It's right. It is about the form. Things go wrong. Pallas Athene stationing to go retrograde is about content. Right? Pallas Athene, it's about telling the truth. Now, when Pallas Athene stations to go retrograde, the question is she's holding on to the truth, or is she letting it go? Or is it the truth? So look at communication, mass communication, what gets said right out at the end of the month. We've got the full moon lunar eclipse. We've got Pallas Athene stationing. We have Mercury stationing to go retrograde. And if your relationship has been, with all of the things that I said earlier, if your relationship has been affected, then Mars opposite Juno also, as we get into the earliest hours of April, we'll be feeling that through the end of March, last couple of days of March, and that might have some significance as well. But really, from about mid-month on, certainly from the 19th onwards, when the sun gets into Aries, we are really in a high energy time. All right, let's see what we have here. So good morning, Shelley, and greetings from North Central Washington and from Sweden. And yes, you are late misbehaving. That you were misbehaving, and there's going to be a quiz, and I don't know how you're going to do well on it. But this. I'm Libra rising, so perhaps need to think on upcoming eclipse. Eclipse is this one is at 5 degrees of Libra, and it's a lunar eclipse. And then in the autumn, we have a solar eclipse at 10 degrees of Libra. March 10th is daylight savings time. Don't be sad about daylight savings time, Heather. No, daylight savings time is a wonderful, wonderful thing. That means, by the way, it will be spring ahead, fall back. It'll be 11:05 p.m. on the 19th when the sun goes into Aries. Daylight saving time is a wonderful thing. Standard time is a lousy thing. And we know that because we're on daylight time more than we're on standard time. Right? We're not, it's not really standard. It's, daylight is most of the year. We should stay on daylight savings time. I'm not going to lose summer hours so that somebody can wake up and see a little bit more light, 5 a.m. in the morning in February or something like that. No, we need long summer nights. So daylight savings time is great. Standard time with its, it gets dark at 5 o'clock or 4:30 in the afternoon in November. That's what we have to get rid of. That's my opinion. And if you don't like it, I have others. Let's see. U.S. clocks change on Sunday, the 31st of March. Yeah, we're always a little quicker to that. That's Easter Sunday, actually. So I wish we'd leave the damn clock alone. Yeah. Yeah, we'll leave it alone, but let's leave it alone on daylight time. No, don't stay in real standard time. No, stay in daylight time. It's arbitrary. It's arbitrary. Come on. You know what? I mean, we're all living by electric lights now anyway. I mean, people hardly recognize, like talk about the cycle of the moon or something like that, and people are kind of lost with it and stuff like that. No, we should have longer summer nights. That's all there is to it. Yeah, I am in the majority with my daylight savings time because I'm right. Because we need longer summer nights. We don't need darker afternoons in the wintertime. It's already dark. All right. Well, hey, Ms. EK from Denver, Colorado. Hi. So, if you're watching live, thank you. And if you're watching if you're watching afterwards, you're alive. If you're watching from the other side, you didn't get to heaven. This is, I would guess, purgatory. I think purgatory might actually be, if you thought about it, like purgatory would be probably something like you're sentenced to watch, 7 million hours of YouTube videos or something along those lines. 60 million hours of YouTube. That's probably what I would get too for doing these things. I have to go watch over and over again. Anyway, catch the weekly forecast because that's where we really unpack things in a practical way. That's where we really, are able to, hone in on things. And there's other stuff happening that I haven't mentioned, of course, over the course of the month. It's not like it's only, and not like I hit everything, but I got the major stuff in this March forecast. So tune in, subscribe, hit the little notification thing so that you know when a new video is out, and we will see you on the weekly forecasts. All right, take care. Bye-bye.